Hello, everybody. This is the Week 4 Sports Economics Reflection discussion, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about what we discussed in class for Monday and Wednesday, respectively. This week we covered a lot about amateurism in sports and whether or not college athletes should be paid. We talked a little bit about it. I'm not sure the extent to which we'll touch on it in the future because I know, with some of the topics they can change over time, and Rizzo might like to ramble on a tangent at some points if it's appropriate for the discussion. But in any event, I would like to begin by making the personal admission that for most of my life, and certainly throughout high school and even going into college a little bit, I used to think that college athletes should not be paid, right? Like they should stick to amateurism in sports, and oftentimes athletes they get a scholarship to play at a school, or they get other benefits insofar as being a student athlete that they wouldn't otherwise have, or students don't have if they choose not to play sports. However, this for me has changed over time, and I certainly I think with some of the classes that we've had recently, my opinion has been more solidified in this manner. Reason being, like looking at it from just the pure economics perspective, a lot of the student athletes, particularly if they're somebody like you know, like a Trevor Lawrence or a Candace Parker back when she was, in college, or somebody who is a very, I guess what I'm trying to say is a highly rated prospect. What they're doing for the school is worth more. It is more valuable than just getting, even assuming if they have a full ride scholarship, which I don't even know if that's the case. I mean, to my knowledge, it's actually fairly uncommon for student athletes to get full ride scholarships. But in any event, particularly if those students are essentially allowing the NCAA or outside companies to use their likeness in a way like for video games, which I know that's was big news coming out of NCAA football recently, was the continuation of the EA Sports series that had been on hiatus for several years because there was controversy surrounding the use of the athlete's likeness for the cover of the games and in-game play, so on and so forth. So there's that part to consider, and that also athletes interact with their school and with their peers in a way to where it's a job, right? They're basically representing the school to complete a certain task. In this case, play a game or sport where they have to conduct themselves in an appropriate manner and balance that with their other co-curricular and academic responsibilities. When I think about it this way, I see it no different from, for example, TAs who might get paid to help a professor grade. No different than the job that I do on campus, where I work with the facilities department, or really with any other, I guess, student job that they have to represent the university or the department of a university in some capacity. Why is that have to be any different for sports? I think a big reason why I felt the opposite way for much of my life is because I was fed a lot of dreck with regards to just amateurism in sports, and like I guess being fed a moral argument about how, oh, you have to play for the love of the game, love of football, love of basketball, love of softball, whatever, when surely the love of game could be coupled with a financial reward or a financial incentive to maintain that love. It's not, an inherently bad thing for those, sort of circumstances to occur. So, I don't, basically what I'm trying to say is I don't see what's the difference between sports, really, when it comes down to brass tacks. I don't see any difference between somebody playing a sport for the university rather than, doing like what would be traditionally considered work. And I guess the counter argument to what I'm saying is that, well, Dax, a lot of Division III athletes might not, bring in a lot of revenue relative to the, the overall operations of the university. They're basically might not be as important, might not be, just, I guess they would compare being a student athlete to be more on par with participation in like a volunteer event, or like, being on the e-board of, an organization or a club that you really like, in terms of, uh, you know, uh, time spent and representation for the school. Now, forgive me if you're an athlete watching this and grading this. I personally am not a student athlete in the official sense. I do not, I'm not on a team or an organization within the university, so I apologize if my comparisons are upsetting you, but I am trying to, I guess, create an analogy for the sake of this potential counter argument, just to show that not everybody is going to be like a Trevor Lawrence. Not everybody is going to be, a University of Alabama football player, where the popularity for that sport, is disproportionate to the role that the student athlete plays in the university. And, of course, that's going to be the case. I'm not, going back to my original argument, I'm not trying to, say that, and I'm not trying to say that student athletes should necessarily always be paid equal amounts or like very healthy amounts. But, that would be, I think, more on a case by case basis that would be worked between the students, the coaches, and, the university, frankly, because it would be obviously different depending on the institution, and presumably jobs here in New York and at the University of Rochester might get paid differently than if we were talking about Union College in Schenectady, or, Harvard in Cambridge, Massachusetts, whatever the case may be. So again, like, just because an athlete is, of like a lower tiers, a Division III athlete may be playing like, I don't know, lacrosse or something, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't or can't get paid. Sorry, my camera cut out. Just one thing I wanted to mention, kind of tying back to some other stuff we talked about for the couple of classes. For my parents, people like my parents who would make the argument against what I just made and advocate for amateurism in college sports. I just think it's a good reminder that, college athletes at the margin are more likely to be successful after college in terms of career, marketability, and the wages that they make in the years after college. And also, they're more likely to graduate relative to the other, their non-college athlete peers. And there are many reasons for this, but I think a big reason is the fact that if, a student is willing, to spend and put the time and energy into pursuing a sport, particularly if they're a Division I athlete and play something like football or basketball, where representing that school in that sport is their life, really, for their time at college. If they're motivated enough to do that, they're more likely to be motivated to pursue other aspects of their career, or just more likely to be motivated people in general who want to get stuff done. And, from that view, I think it's only fair, or not even necessarily fair, just the only thing that makes sense to do, to make sure that college sports make sense and is done in the most equitable sort of way possible, to where we can structure incentives to keep college sports growing for people who like to watch the sports, but also to make sure that colleges are getting the best athletes and try to pursue their mission of being the best at any given sport.